What's going on, vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a bootleg vinyl haul, and we are going to get the lead out. That's right, this haul is centered all around Led Zeppelin bootlegs that I got my hands on recently. Now, the master plan was to do this massive bootleg haul video at the end of the year, just so nothing that I got in 2021 overlapped into 2022. But while I was going through everything that I got bootleg-wise from the past 6 months, the Zeppelin stuff that I got had just amassed so much that I felt it would be more fair if I gave them their own video. Plus, doing a Zeppelin bootleg haul video in general is a first for the channel, and I figured we would have one in. Now, most of these bootlegs I got from Roland Rex, and some I got from various record stores that I have visited, as well as the one that I work at. And honestly, it covers a lot of ground. There are some soundboard and audience recordings, recordings from Soundchecks and studio outtakes, so I think there's something for everyone here to enjoy. So enough of the chit chat, let's jump into what this video is all about. First up is Killer Highlights. This is a collection of recordings from Zeppelin's Japanese tour in 1971, particularly the two shows at the Festival Hall in Osaka on September 28th and 29th. And what's cool about this release is that while audience recordings have circulated of these shows, given that this release came out this year in 2021, this is the first time that the soundboard recordings have circulated from these shows. Now, it has been stated that Zeppelin's Japanese record label, Warner Brothers Pioneer Corporation, which represented Atlantic Records, recorded all of the shows, but Jimmy Page felt that they were poor and the tapes were wiped. Now, I'm not sure if perhaps these soundboard tapes that leaked out are the professionally recorded tapes that were recorded by the label, or this is just an entirely different source. And while this is not the full show, the performances are loose, and the recordings themselves do lend themselves to be one of the better soundboard recordings that I've heard in terms of the leveling of everything and the way that it is recorded. Now, they open with the Immigrant song, which always kicked off the show into high gear, and then during the acoustic middle section, they throw in renditions of We Shall Overcome and Down by the Riverside, and they also do one of my favorite Zeppelin songs, and that is Tangerine. Just absolutely adore that song. And then, of course, you get things like Communication Breakdown, Rock and Roll, Stairway to Heaven, all that good stuff. And at the end of this particular record, there are some bonus audience recordings of Come On Everybody and High Heeled Sneakers. Honestly, I love the artwork on this. It does look rather professional looking with the way that the photos are edited and such. And we have some cool live shots on the back cover with the track list. Does come with a nice gatefold sleeve, which has some liner notes talking about the recordings and the tour, as well as some photos. And the records come pressed on standard black vinyl, but they do come with this interesting retro rock label, which is the label that this bootleg was released under. Overall, a very solid live document of Zeppelin's 1971 Japanese tour. Next up is Strange Tales from the Road. Now, this is a rather interesting release, which brings together recordings from Zeppelin's American tour from 1977, particularly the shows from the Capitol Center in Maryland from May 26th and Madison Square Garden in New York from June 11th. Now, the recordings from Maryland are dubbed as monitor mixes, which means that you get to hear the band as they heard themselves on stage through the monitor speakers on stage. And it's quite the contrast when you listen to these mixes, because John Bonham's kick drum is rather high, John Paul Jones's bass is practically absent, and Robert Plant's vocals don't have any effects on them. So it's a very unique, one-of-a-kind way to hear the band. And then the recordings from New York are mixing desk recordings, which are more or less traditional soundboard recordings, which is what the audience members hear from the loudspeakers at the given venue. So this release is unique perspective-wise when you listen to it. Now, this basically collects the highlights from these shows, and it does feature some then recent Zeppelin standards, such as Kashmir and Achilles' Last Stand. But the real highlights for me are the New York recordings, which include 10 Years Gone and a live rendition of The Battle of Evermore, which features John Paul Jones singing the Sandy Denny vocal parts. It's something you got to hear at least once. This came out on Casino Records, one of the best bootleg labels out there in regards to the quality of their releases, whether it's the sound quality or the packaging. And as you can see, it does feature some very cool photos on the front and back cover. This also does come with an insert talking about the various shows and the mixes, kind of explains it a little bit. A nice bit of design. And out of 500 copies, this is copy number 193 and comes pressed on green vinyl. Next up is Circa 1975. Now, this one is quite an oddity because it is actually a recording from a pre-show sound check. And even though it is called Circa 1975, the recording is from a sound check at the Fulton County Stadium in Atlanta on April 4th, 1973. But the 1975 connection can be made because the songs that are featured on this release are indeed from Physical Graffiti, which was released that year. And you hear the band jamming through the embryonic beginnings of what would become Custard Pie and the Wonton Song, and then you also hear them going through renditions of Night Flight and The Rover, since those tracks were recorded during the sessions for Led Zeppelin 4 and Houses of the Holy. And then the band just breaks into medleys of Chuck Berry and rockabilly tunes, and those are quite fun to listen to. Now, as to why these sound checks were recorded is up for speculation. Perhaps it provided time for the band to flesh out some ideas, particularly in the case for Custard Pie and the Wonton Song, and they simply revisited these recordings to hear certain ideas that can be worked in. Regardless, it is a cool fly-on-the-wall type of experience to hear Zeppelin just playing anything and everything. And what I love about the packaging of this bootleg is that it kind of reminds me of the sort of old-school type of bootlegs where you basically got a single printed sheet with a band photo and the track list, and that is what is exactly here, except the sheet is kind of stuck to this plain basic album jacket, and it is a pretty cool photo of the band live in 75. And the vinyl itself comes pressed on this beautiful piece of marbled gray or sort of white vinyl. Next up is Stoned on the Stairway. Now, this is a collection of various rehearsals and outtakes from the sessions of Led Zeppelin 4 at Headley Grange. Now, if you thought that the companion audio and the deluxe edition of Led Zeppelin 4 dug deeper beyond the album, you need to hear this bootleg because there are several variations of Stairway to Heaven where you can basically hear Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones getting the arrangement right for the song, and you can see as the takes progress how the song takes form. And then there are some various bluesy jams and rehearsals of the band going through Black Dog, and the arrangement is a bit rough around the edges, kind of close to the final version, but you get the sense that they are just kind of working through it. But the big highlight for me on this particular release is an early rendition of No Quarter. And you hear Robert Plant providing some tasteful scat vocals, and the arrangement is a bit more driving and harder edged, not so much the lucid type that would appear on Houses of the Holy sometime later. It is so fascinating to hear. And as an added bonus, there is a recording of the rough idea for the song Hey Hey What Can I Do, which was the B-side of the Immigrant Song single, which never appeared on an album, and that was taken from the Bron Rar sessions where Robert and Jimmy retreated to the countryside and wrote what would appear on Led Zeppelin 3 and 4. The artwork overall is quite solid with a cool photo of Robert on the back, and the track list is here, and the pressing itself comes pressed on orange vinyl with a nice blue label. Next up is Yellow Zeppelin. This is an audience recording taken from the Whiskey A Go-Go in Los Angeles on January 5th, 1969. Also, fun fact, the opening act for this show was the original Alice Cooper Band, and they decided who was going to go on first just by flipping a coin and seeing what it landed on, and whatever it was, they were the first band to go on stage, because at that point in early 69, these bands were so unknown. So just a little tad bit of history to throw in there. This right here is a treasure trove, because not only did this show take place just days before the first album would be released, but the sound quality of this audience recording is truly remarkable. The overall balance of each member just meshes perfectly, and even though Robert Plant's vocals are being fed through a PA system, you can still make out his vocals, so hearing this gig is an absolute treat. Now, while they do showcase selections from the first album, such as I Can't Quit You Baby, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, and Dazed and Confused. They also tap into some Yardbirds territory with Train Kept a Rollin' and For Your Love. And they also do a cover of Howlin' Wolf's Killing Floor, which of course would become the basis of the Lemon song, which is on Led Zeppelin 2. And what's crazy is that performance-wise, the band is on fire, and they were all suffering bouts of the flu at this show. And still, even under those circumstances, they rose to the occasion. So there is certainly a lot going for this particular bootleg. This is one that does pop up frequently, and you should not pass it. It is such a great one. And after listening to it, it made me want to seek out more bootlegs from this particular period of the band. It is just absolutely phenomenal. But aside from the performance and the recording itself, you have to admire the artwork. It is basically their take on Yellow Submarine, the Beatles movie. And you can see there's the band there. And you can see their manager, Peter Grant, dressed as one of the Blue Meanies. And there's the Hermit from the gatefold of Led Zeppelin 4, which is just a good bit of fun. I absolutely adore this artwork. And this pressing comes pressed on marbled gray vinyl, and it is absolutely stunning to look at. Last but not least, we have From Barnes to New York. This is a collection of studio outtakes from the sessions for Led Zeppelin 1 and Led Zeppelin 2. It opens with a BBC recording of Communication Breakdown, which can be found on the BBC sessions, but then we are treated to some alternate takes of Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You and You Shook Me from the first album. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You features an almost rough and ready vocal from Robert, almost like a guide vocal to when he would do the final vocal take. And then You Shook Me, it's the first take, and overall it just has a very loose feel to it. And then we have the track Baby Come On Home, which was recorded during the sessions but got released officially as part of the second box set that came out in the 1990s. It sounds very close to the master recording, but there are some like fuzz bass parts that are added to the mix, and there is no fade out as well. So there's a little bit more to this particular recording. And then we have some alternate mixes from Led Zeppelin 2. The version of Whole Lotta Love is great because it sounds almost like a premix that was made prior to overdubs being laid on top of it, because the middle section sounds identical, but some of the elements that are buried in the final mix are more pronounced here. And there is also a different guitar solo in the middle of Heartbreaker, which makes for a very interesting listen. I do have to say, while we are spoiled with the companion discs of unreleased audio with the deluxe remasters of the Zeppelin catalog, these alternate takes and mixes are surely giving them a run for their money. The front and back feature some pretty cool 1969 era photos, little bits of information talking about the different takes and mixes. And the vinyl itself comes pressed on a very lovely piece of marbled sky blue vinyl. So there you guys go. That is my Led Zeppelin bootleg vinyl haul. Be sure to stay tuned sometime next month where you guys will be getting yet another Pink Floyd themed bootleg haul video. It's been a while since I last did a Floyd bootleg haul, so you definitely don't want to miss that, so be sure to stay tuned for it. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to support this channel, be sure to check me out on Patreon. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the records spinning.